Welcome to Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. Welcome back to Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. I am your host, Shari Foos. I am a medical professional, author, adversity recovery specialist, and co-founder of Silver Lining Wellness Company. I love sharing my faith and bringing you fascinating guests, Friday Fire messages, thinking outside the box, sharing ideas for business, beauty, and lifestyle abundance, and always committed to keeping it real. Now let's level up and let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the show. We are celebrating Love Weekend as Valentine's Day is Monday, and I have the perfect guest for Love Weekend, Shari Foos. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist who holds a master's of arts in clinical psychology. She is a sought-after expert on the subjects of relationships and meaningful connection. Shari's writings have appeared in Real Simple, Huffington Post, Thrive, Women's Health, and Bustle. And today she's here chatting about marriage, healing relationships, and human connection. Hello, Shari. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Shari. Nice to be here.
Good. I'm so glad that you are with us because this is our, I don't know if I want to call it Valentine's Day episode anymore because you call it the V word and you'll explain why, but it's our love episode where we talk about relationships and inclusion of others and marriage. And what's amazing is that you have the experience and the education and everything that we need to hear on what we need to really be looking at and how we can heal our marriages and relationships. Because one thing that, and I told you before we started recording, that I found that a lot of marriages are suffering because of financial problems, because of COVID. People have lost their businesses and their jobs. And not only that, with politics in itself, families have absolutely torn apart. Friendships have dissolved because they don't agree. And instead of just agreeing to disagree, it's caused a huge fight amongst families. And I saw that people that I actually know these past holidays. And it's really sad. We all have our own opinions. We have, so a lot of us have more stronger opinions than others. And some of us type A personalities like to get our opinions across, but I know you can help us a little bit with relationships. So I want you to really, let's just kind of dive in and talk about, and we're also going to talk about the narrative method, your program. So let's talk a little bit about marriage and what you're seeing with marriage and some of the top reasons why marriages actually have issues. I mean, some of those reasons and how we can work with our spouses, our significant others, our boyfriends, girlfriends, in order to help heal those relationships that have been torn apart.
Obviously, this has been an incredibly difficult time for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think you can multiply the anxiety by how many square feet you're living in. And you know what? You can't expect yourself to get along when you're cramped as easily as you will when you have more space. And that's just a reality. But we have to keep in mind a couple of things. We talk about relational mindfulness, and that's an agreement that when you are specifically talking about something important, that you will give your partner or your friend gift of your full presence. If you decide, let's talk at such and such a time, this is serious, and one or the other person has something on their mind or something they have to do, just postpone, because there's nothing that feels worse than you're caring passionately about something and the other person not really having the presence to listen. So you establish that time. The whole practice is really about mutual respect and confidentiality, so that exactly what you would do when you talk about your own mindfulness practice or your own meditation or your yoga or any other practice that works for you. The idea is to be able to feel safe enough to let go and to let go of what you think you know for sure, especially in long-standing relationships where, I have told my husband a certain thing 1,000,000 times. Well, if he still doesn't get it, maybe I didn't communicate it. So we need to do that. Then there's the other main issue, and I want to talk about both of these. And the other one is we've been given a lot of fairy tales and expectations about what relationships will provide. And if
Right.
I was giving anyone marriage advice, is to expect to be disappointed. No matter how great a fit you are, there will be something or some things that you either don't see eye to eye on, or one person loves, the other couldn't care less. So what? That's what friends are for. Never get rid of your friends when you're in a relationship. So I think we have built up expectations that speak to our longing. But just because we have a longing doesn't mean that we need that thing to manifest in order to be happy. People who aren't in relationships may really want a relationship. They can be happy. And so these are some of the things that I just thought we could address right off the bat.
Yeah, that's good. And, being that it is, we're going in here to the love weekend. I guess I'll call it the love weekend because Valentine's Day is Monday. But, with couples, I have found too, and even in my own relationship, we get real passionate about something that we're excited about. And how you go to share it with your spouse and you can tell they're just kind of halfway listening. It's so frustrating when you're excited about something or you really want to chat about something, or maybe something happened at the office and you're not a negative Nancy, but when you come home, it's a safe place to be able to talk to your spouse about it. And it's kind of like, that's not a big deal, or just kind of
Yeah,
brush it off. And
right.
it starts to build up that tension. And then what I have found, and I've seen this in some of my friends' relationships, is it builds up a resentment because
Mhm.
one person feels that what they're doing is important and the other person finds it not important or really just doesn't have time to listen. So how do we have those relationships without building that resentment because one cares and one just kind of flies by the seat of their pants, I guess?
Such a perfectly crystallized problem. So there's two things going on here. One is, how are you telling this? Is your spouse doing something else at the time? Did you ask up front? Do you have time? I just want to talk about something that happened at work that I'm so upset
Mm,
about. And if you sense that they don't have that energy for whatever reason, if and you can't call a friend, write about it.
mm,
Journaling is one of the most powerful ways to get clarification. There have been
yeah,
times if I've been aggravated about something and I tell my husband, then, why are you aggravated? I don't know. It made me aggravated.
right.
The fact is, when we are overwhelmed with a feeling and we want to get to a neutral place so that we can relate better to the person or the situation,
Mhm,
we have to hear ourselves out one way or the other.
mm,
But maybe this is a way to understand, my spouse doesn't care about this kind of stuff. They never get it. We've tried, it's never satisfying, but man, when it comes to important stuff, they're right there.
yeah.
That's really the first determinant. Whether it's men and women or same-sex couples, there are always things that just are not going to be mutually valued. So we need to check in. What do we share?
Mm,
Do we share trust? Do we love each other beyond being attracted to each other?
mhm,
Do we respect the other? Do we feel respected? When I need something, when you need something, are we there for each other? Those kinds of things. And do we have the same values? It can be done. People can be together with very different values, but it's really a constant challenge.
yeah.
So there has to be an undergirding challenge, an undergirding connection, rather, that's stronger than that disagreement. And if you have that, then the other stuff is just a matter of being able to cope with that disappointment. Man, I just want to speak my mind right now.
Yeah.
But the habit of writing is life-changing.
Oh, we are speaking the same language because I'm huge on journaling. During COVID, actually created a journal. It's called Create Your Life. It's a 30-day devotional lifestyle workbook because journaling and writing is what got me through when my son passed away in an auto accident 14 years ago. So I literally somebody gave me a book, just a book that had my name imprinted on it. It was a leather bound, just plain paper book. And I just started writing, and I just wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And then it turned into me writing when I was traveling, on my computer. And after 7 years, that's really where the book came from, the Wake Up Call, Mother's Grief Journey. But I'm telling you, just journaling, everybody knows that listens to my show, I preach about journaling because it's so important. If you don't want to be that person that burdens other people, or you feel like you really just don't want to talk to anybody about it, but you have to get it out, I have found that writing it down is the best method. It's definitely healing for me. And I know it has been for other people as well. So we are definitely on the same page. And I want to kind of go back to something that you were talking about with checking in with that person, because that makes a lot of sense. I think too, we may find that what we're doing is super important, but are we actually respecting our spouse or our loved one and checking in and saying, hey, do you have time? Because what we have is important, but can they actually take it all in right now? Because they have an important life too. And I think sometimes we just expect them to set everything down. And, I know that different marriages have been struggling over different things, but what do you find, Shari, is some of the top reasons why standing marriages just dissolve over time? What are some of the top reasons that you see?
An inability to put yourself aside, to really listen to the other person's experience, because it's so obvious to us at times, right? And it almost feels like a deal breaker that you don't understand. Are you kidding me? I have to explain this to you? It would be almost like if somebody's cheating and you have to explain why you don't appreciate that. But there will be things that are incredibly obvious to you that may feel like a deal breaker. And you may have to do some deeper work around it to understand what about that is essential. So if it's a matter of, when I have something on my mind, I have to know that you're going to be there for me. Well, if you're a toddler, you can hope for that, and your caretakers will try their best to provide those things.
Right.
But if you're an adult dealing with another adult, just as you said, we all have complex things going on, and cannot always bring ourselves fully to someone else's moment when we're in the midst of our own thing. That is a task that requires learning the tools of self-soothing, and there are lots of them. One thing I recommend, because it's so easy, is if you put your dominant hand on your heart and connect with your heartbeat, it's kind of a way of saying with strength to the inner parts that are, unsure or insecure or fearful, look, I've got it. I've gotten us through everything else in life, not always knowing exactly how, but you don't have to worry about it. Fear, I'll take over. And it's a way that you simultaneously feel more in control. But from the inside, you do feel soothed, like, oh, okay. So whether it's that, or a 5-minute meditation, or going for a walk, or just getting up from what you're currently doing. When you get up from what you're doing, if it was a very focused activity, you automatically will switch into a diffuse mode that may make you realize missing pieces of what you were working on without consciously focusing on it. So it's the same in a relationship. When we're just on the same, but tell me, no, that's not an answer. Tell me, you're never going to get anywhere that way.
Right.
What you have at times when it's like that, you just, let's agree to disagree for a moment. Let's just take a 10-minute break. Okay. And if you can find it within you, I love you. This is so hard, but I love you. Whatever you can do.
That makes perfect sense. And when you said something about someone cheating and then you feeling like you have to even explain why that's a big deal, I think that I know in grief, and griefs are different forms, right? It's not just the loss of a loved one, it's loss of business, it's loss of other relationships, and loss of your job. We can all grieve. We can grieve a divorce, right? I think that in grief, I have found with losing my son and then doing a lot of grief speaking at bereavement groups and women's groups, that a lot of couples do suffer during grief, because everybody grieves differently. But a lot of times, many of the times, they can usually get through it. It's something that they can ultimately come together and get through. Financial turmoil, I've seen people mend back together, and they can come through it. But infidelity is something that I see. It takes a special couple, really. I don't even know the right term for it, to get through that. But do you actually think that people can get past that?
It's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It depends on a bunch of factors. Was it love? Was it one time? All those kinds of what was happening in our relationship during the time. It's complex, but I have seen people get beyond it and become stronger for it. But if it's a habitual go-to for one partner or the other when they're stressed, that's pretty untenable. And especially if there are children involved, it's so difficult.
I've known people that have really become stronger than they even were before. And then
Yeah.
couples as well, they can't get past it. It actually just destroys them completely, as much as they try. It destroys them. So I want to shift a little bit. I want to kind of talk about, because I don't know a lot about it, I want for us to talk about the narrative method, what that is. Just kind of share it with the audience, because I also know that you have something that's coming up Monday that everybody can partake in, and we're going to talk about that too. But bring us into the narrative methods. What is that?
The narrative method is an experience for people to come together, diverse people who don't necessarily know each other, to connect through sharing the stories of their lives. And we do this in a number of ways. We work with universities, we work with businesses, and we have free Zoom-ins for individuals who come from all over the place. And in a brief period of time, we do two kinds of things. We do either conversation groups or writing groups. So on Tuesdays and Sundays, we do a write, and that's based on having a very stimulating, inspiring piece of media or art or an idea. And based on that, you get prompts to create a finished piece in less than an hour, so you can't beat yourself up. And then everybody goes into breakouts and shares what they've written. And then we come back and everybody shares one line. So that's really fun. The conversation groups are similar in terms of seeing some material that's inspiring, getting a prompt, but then going into breakout rooms to share personal stories that are evoked from that. And so that's always amazing. And, people wind up sharing stuff they had forgotten about.
Right.
And there's nothing that anyone has ever pushed to talk about. I don't think people should ever be in that kind of situation.
Right.
But it's a way to create an experience of feeling known and knowing other people in a meaningful way. And it's fun, it's profound, and it's funny. And so that's the essence of it. So we're part of the Human Connection movement, and our goal is just to offer ways for people to come together in such a disorganized world,
These folks are just from all over. Are they just in the US or all over?
Mostly in the US, but we
Okay.
have had people from other countries. It's tricky timing wise. But we hope to eventually expand everywhere.
So where can we check that out?
You can go to thenarrativemethod.org/events, and you will be able to sign up for whatever you like.
Oh, okay. I'm definitely going to have to do that, because that sounds really neat. I am about writing and journaling. I love that. And I love meeting new people. And I think that's just one of the blessings that I've had having this show, is I meet such incredible women like yourself, and just very impressive. You being a therapist, and you have your master's degree, and you psychology, and all that stuff I love. I love picking other people's brains on what they know, and then being able to share it to other people. So it's a huge deal. And I wrote down some questions for you, Shari. So tell me if you want to go down this path, we can. But some of the questions that had come over that I checked that I wanted to talk about was the importance of creative dreaming. tell me about that creative dreaming. Can we actually create our dreams or take something creative from our dreams?
Well, all of that's possible, but in the narrative method, we have 12 core concepts, and one of them is what you're referring to. It's called Wonderland. I mentioned earlier that people have different ways of meditating or getting centered with themselves. There's a way that I discovered when I was pregnant and could not lie on my side, to lay on my back with pillows under my arms, pillows under my legs, and just to be incredibly supported so that you're just a floating head. You have no pain, no worries. You're not thinking about yourself. You just turn on your imagination. And in the same way that you might, if you were falling asleep, or you might fantasize about something you'd like to do or something you'd like to happen, you can either use it as a way to sort of fantasize and project a thing you are trying to create and follow that and direct it, or you can just let your mind wander. The reason you're on your back is it's not as easy to fall asleep. If you do fall asleep, that's okay. But if you just allow your imagination to lead, you will start discovering things that you hadn't thought of. And I would urge you to keep a pen and paper next to you, because you may get a million ideas and maybe only one of them will be amazing, but you would not have gotten that idea otherwise. So definitely write it down.
So everybody that knows me knows that I love my vision boards, my annual vision board. And sometimes I will carry over a particular image or a thought or a dream from one year to the next. I'm like, okay, I haven't done that yet. And so I kind of will carry it over. It's those really important ones. And one thing that I have been doing to help me really just kind of relax at night when I feel like I'm tossing and turning, I will actually start thinking about things that are on my vision board. It's like I create my visions and I fall asleep so quickly. There's a particular house that I really want to build. I don't know that I ever will, but it's great to think about it and to envision what it looks like and build the building process and what I want to put in it. And so when I find that my mind is going, like it's been a crazy day and it's going every which way, I'll just go, okay, sure, I'm going to think about the house. So I literally will take my mind, my vision inside the home and start thinking of where I want to put what and what color I want the sofa and what I want to do with the tiles. And before you know it, I am complete. I don't even remember if I even get down the hallway in my brain before I fall asleep. Isn't that
Your
crazy?
brain probably escaped to that house. No, here's why that's so super brilliant. Earlier, we were talking about how people should be able to anticipate that you'll be disappointed in any relationship, because nobody can perfectly fit us. We're complex. The ability you are just so right in this pocket. The ability to enjoy a fantasy for the fantasy's sake is what creativity is. Sure, it'd be nice if it came true. It would be nice if my spouse would be ready, willing, and able to hear every story I had to tell every time I wanted to tell it. But we don't really need all of our fantasies to come true in order to be just fine, because you have something called a mind, which is so much more complex and so much more interesting than any computer. And that is your playground, and nobody else can think of what you're thinking of.
Right.
So to be able to enjoy fantasy like that, it just makes you more and more creative. When you're afraid of dreaming because you don't want to be disappointed, that is where you start to close off your perspective. So I would say to anybody who feels that they are stuck, try to work on allowing yourself to have a bigger perspective, and that may make you feel a little more insecure at first.
With that, how do we take false information and create new beliefs with that?
Love it. So we've all been told certain things about ourselves, or through the sophistication of culture, we've learned things about people that we didn't understand before. For instance, almost every person in a wheelchair will tell you that people will speak more loudly around them because it's sort of an instinct. So there are lots of ways in which we didn't understand people's differences as much as we do now. It's it's really a matter of expecting to connect very specifically in real time with what's happening in real time.
Mm.
I'm not sure that answered your question.
Brings me back to some of the guests that we've had on the show, and they've talked about, maybe we've had a psychologist before, and we've had some other folks that talked about some of their clients, their patients hang on to negative beliefs that they have been told about themselves their whole childhood. It's like, at what point do you let it go? And some people don't understand that's really hard for some folks to be able to let that go. Whereas
It's hard
other
for
people
everyone.
are like, that happened in my childhood. I'm
Yeah.
not sweating that. But then you see them, it manifest in other ways. And you're like, oh yeah, it actually does affect you because you're doing this and this, and it's probably because of what happened to you in your childhood. So I don't know if they're just in denial and it affects everyone as they grow up, but I know certain people, and I've met people in groups who I've spoken to that take these just negative, horrible things that they've had to grow up with, and they bring it into their adult life, and they
Yeah.
wonder why their adult life is, the relationships are chaos.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. We all take in negative stuff, and you'll see it, if you're working on something, you're stuck on
Mhm.
something, and you might have hear something in a flash that is so familiar you barely notice it, but you suck, you never
Mm.
finish anything. We all have these kinds of things.
Mhm.
Our coping mechanisms change throughout our lives. The way to improve your your coping method is to face that issue and talk to it. So when we talked about putting your hand on your heart, you can invite that feeling to tell you more. So, okay, really? I never finish anything? Why do you say that? Oh,
Mm.
you never finish anything. Well, where does that come from? I guess from high school when I wasn't finishing those papers or whatever. But
Mm.
as an adult, I've finished a lot of things. You start to correct a wrong notion. Those are a little bit easier because you can give yourself evidence.
Right.
But when it comes to deeper issues around shame for what you are, because somebody told you were no good repeatedly, you have to build or have to have had the good fortune of somebody loving you enough that you have a strength to counterbalance that. Otherwise, I would really suggest for people to go to therapy to develop that kind of internal strength that will really help you gain that perspective we were talking about before. And with that perspective, you can be able to challenge, well, like you said, that was
Mhm.
then. That happened when I was 8 years old, and now that I understand it, it wasn't even malicious. I misunderstood it and carried forth that assumption.
Right.
So it's
Right.
really about breaking things down as they come to us, and any one memory or any one incident really applies to everything else sort of on that thread, and you
Mhm.
continue thinking about it unconsciously, and it really does lessen its impact.
I know someone that actually their mother was a bit of a narcissist, evidently, when they were growing up, and they have grown as an adult. They know this about their parent, but I think the way it's manifested in them is that they care so much about what other people think about them, to the
Mhm.
point to where it drives you crazy. Because if you're not that kind of person that really, of course we all want people to like us, right? We want everyone to like us, but it's not going to steal my joy if you don't like me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know where that has come from in me. I don't know why. I actually like that about myself because I don't want to
Yeah.
have to be concerned about other people's thoughts and feelings of me. I know who I am. I know who I am in God. I know who I am as a person. And if people don't like me, I just think, well, they probably just don't know me that well. That's the way I look at it. But I know this particular person whose parent was a bit, well, was a narcissist. She has developed this to where, her whole adulthood, and still cares about so much about what other people think about her. And what she does for a living or how she looks or what she says or what she speaks or what she puts on social media. It's constant of, well, so and so won't like that, or so and so may think this. How do you help somebody like that?
It's a very deep wound,
Yeah.
and it's a narcissist's wound, projected into a child. Now, the narcissist doesn't have it within them to nurture the child. So
Mm-hmm.
the child is starving, and that person is still starving.
Mm,
And I believe that volunteerism is one of the greatest ways to get out of our own head and out of our own worry about ourselves. It really, in my opinion, heals depression and reduces anxiety in a tremendous way. So
right.
it's about, how can I give to someone else and receive the connection that occurs
Mm,
when I'm doing that,
right.
and then to allow that to build up more of your focus than worrying about yourself. But again, this really needs serious treatment
Yeah.
because this person was deprived from the moment they were born.
One thing that we were talking about before we started recording was that you refer to Valentine's Day. You don't like the V word, you said. But we never talked about it over that. So what is it with the V word? I know it's not a happy day for some people, but tell me why you call it the V word.
Pains me that anybody should have to feel sad for not having an intimate relationship,
Mm,
especially when they have other people in the world who love them. Of course, who wouldn't be sad to not have anyone that you love or who loves you?
yeah.
That is not a state of thriving that anybody can handle. The emphasis on that, particularly in a world where it's not realistic to expect that everybody will be all coupled up all the time.
Right.
So I would rather see it be a day of love and appreciating people, your intimate partners as
Right.
well as strangers and other loved ones. So
Mm,
that's the only reason. But yeah, so we're doing an antidote. We're offering, we're actually launching on Valentine's Day this new event called the One Line Right. And in a very quick hour, you'll get different input. Like some things might be a book where I'll read the flap of the book and you'll get a sense of the story and the place and the time. And I'll say, okay, now write the first line of this book. And then everyone will do it. And then we'll all read the first lines and I'll read the actual one. And it's tremendous fun to see how uniquely everyone takes the same input.
that's neat.
So that's this Monday at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern.
5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. And we'll put that in the show notes too, guys. So, and we'll put a link. So tell us what the link is, and
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
actually put it in the show notes.
It's thenarrativemethod.org/events.
Now, before we go, and I want to find out, I want everyone to know where they can find you too, Shari. I know that you practice radical gratitude. Why is that important? What is it and why is it important?
Even before I say anything about it, I'm going to tell you that you are so there. I feel that off of you. Radical gratitude is just realizing that simply being alive is a miracle every day,
Mm,
and that everything is fascinating and there is beauty everywhere. So half of it is just paying attention with awe to the beauty and the wonder around us and making a point to stop and acknowledge. The other part is every time you survive a close call, you know this more than anybody, you know that it's very easy to just go on, on with your day. But
right.
God forbid when something happens, you realize how important it is. We must give equal importance to the things we survive so
Mm,
that we can remember, first of all, how blessed and fortunate we are,
right.
and also to accentuate that within ourselves. The more you do it, the more you walk around feeling lucky. I mean, whether it's an accident or almost pushing send or any other kind of negative thing, that doesn't happen.
Right.
And so it's an opportunity to really celebrate life constantly.
You're right. You're spot on because I do that every day. And the reason I think that I have gotten there in my life is because losing my 17-year-old 14 years ago was traumatic, to say the least. And it's been a long growth process. And one thing that I do, and it just brings me that internal joy. The thing is, I don't allow the things that are happening outside of me and my environment, my circumstances, my surroundings to affect the joy that I have inside of me and it's taken me, Shari, a long time to get here. This has been years of work. And the reason why is because if that happened, then the world itself and my circumstances would control me on a daily basis. And I'm way too much of a control freak for that. So I have
And
to
you're
keep
more than you're more.
Yes, you're more than that. And one thing that I find myself doing is just today, I was in a hurry and I pulled into the store. I had to go grab something really quick and a car pulled out in the very front parking spot at the front door on this packed parking lot. And I recognized it right away. Then I was just like, I go, thank you, God. And I say, thank you to my son. I go, thank you, Bryant. Thank you, God. And I've just pulled up and it saved me probably about 20 minutes, literally, from having to walk across this huge parking lot. It's just the little bitty things to be grateful for. If you walk out to get in your car, be thankful that you have a car to drive. If it's a beautiful day and there's not a cloud in the sky, just say, oh, what a beautiful day. Thank you, Lord, for this day. Or, just being grateful for the little things in life. I think we have to speak of them though. I tell people, don't just think things, speak it. If I see somebody that I think, I was in line just the other day and this lady was behind me and she just the most beautiful hair. And I said, you have the most gorgeous hair. And she just lit up like a Christmas tree. I'm thinking, gosh, this is the only compliment she's gotten in a month. But maybe it was, you know what I mean? I just don't keep those things to myself.
Sure.
If I think it and it's beautiful, I just say it because it fills you up, right? So when you're doing that, it fills you up as well. And so, yes, gratitude. I think we need to go through life, not just being appreciative of everything, but we need to be speaking it. We need to be speaking gratitude.
And it does change your brain.
Yes.
You become more optimistic. I mean, there is research. It's real.
It has changed my brain tremendously. I will tell you, it has. I mean, I am a walking testimony of journaling and gratitude and prayer. And one thing that I didn't do for years and I changed was just being grateful for the little things that my husband does. I mean, ladies, you need to be saying thank you. Don't just expect it because he's your husband, right? If he's grabbing your purse and putting it in the car, grabbing the luggage, or as soon as you pull up with the groceries, he's walking outside. Don't just expect it. I think we need to start being thankful because if it was a friend, we would thank our friend.
Exactly. If it was the first time, if you had just started dating, you'd go crazy.
Exactly.
At least inside, you might have too much pride, but
I know. That's true.
Yes. So to treat your beloved as this is our first day, it's amazing.
We are on the same page with that because it has taken me a while to get here. And I would not even think about going back to my old ways, years of thinking, because I was in such a hurry in my 30s to be the perfect mom and make sure everything was just great. And, I just didn't really enjoy life so much because I was too busy trying to make it perfect. My kids had to be in everything. And back then, Oshkosh Bagosh was the brand, and I had to make my kids wearing the Oshkosh Bagosh and the big bows, and they were in the dance and the sports and I just my life had to just be perfect. Oh, and at the same time, I had to look the part. So it was exhausting. If there's anything that I can tell you, moms, is just relax and enjoy your life, and enjoy your children. If you're making brownies and it spills on the floor, just laugh about it. Don't get so upset. It's just not that big a deal.
That's a good thing to celebrate. It's only brownie mix on the floor. Put up in the roof.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like somebody walked in and peed on the floor. It's brownies.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Shari. I appreciate you so much. And before we go, I want you to tell everybody where we can find you on social media as well.
Well, all the typical places on social media for sure. Again, thenarrativemethod.org. You can sign up for free events. We also have a 12-week course coming up, which is not free. And we have products like T&M DIY human cards. These are
Nice.
decks of cards based on the 12 core concepts that allow you to run your own group with your friends or colleagues or whomever, or use them as writing prompts. So really, Shari, you're incredible. I am a
Thank
big
you.
fan. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I love it. And I'm so excited that we're going to air this on today, this Friday, because it is the love weekend. We're going to call it Love Day. It's
All right.
not the V word. It's Love Day. If you don't have that significant person in your life, then the person that's closest to you, I want you to do something for that person. And it's not about what we get in return, right? It's about what we can do. If there's someone at work or in your family, especially if there's a widow. If there's a widow, my heart goes out to widows. My mom is a widow. Do something for maybe your next door neighbor, or there's a lady at work and you can bring her some Valentines and just tell her that how much you appreciate everything that she does for everybody else. It means so much. So just spread love on Valentine's Day, and make sure that you go to the show notes. There's going to be a link where you can go to the online writing that's on at 5:00 Pacific time. And thank you so much, Shari. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in all the way through Real Girl Talk Show. Make sure you subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you happen to have iTunes, would you do me a favor and leave me a review on the show? I know you're going to leave me a 5-star, right? That's the way that I can reach more and more people around the world. Remember, whatever you wish to receive, you have to first give. And I know that you're the kind of person that wants to reach people all over the world and inspire them. You can copy this link and share it with your family and friends. Share it on social media. Remember, people need to be uplifted and inspired more than ever today. Thank you so much for being a part of Real Girl Talk community. And until next time, go after your dreams, create your vision, and truly be the person God intended you to be. Healthy, happy, whole, and full of life. Love you.